Welcome in. You didn't find this by accident. This is the Whisper Lounge, a soft space for the conversations we weren't supposed to have. While you're here, you can leave a tip using the captivate.fm link in the show bio. And if you're ready, your complimentary 7-day exploration journal is waiting. Just head to whisperlounge.club/join to claim it and be one of the first to step inside to explore. Well, thank you everyone for holding tight while we took a break in the month of December. That's just been the timing of the year for me. And so I wanted to take a break over the holidays, and I'm very excited about starting out this new year and what we're going to start it out with. This is the first episode in a series that I've really been looking forward to sharing with you all. If you've checked out the lounge at all up to this point, you know this is a space where I bring my real experiences, questions, and curiosities about sex and intimacy, not as a therapist or a doctor, but as someone who's lived inside these questions and knows how much they matter. And today, I want to talk about two words that sound similar, but actually mean very different things. The reason we're talking about these two words is because as I was creating the idea behind Whisper Lounge, and I really wanted it to be, as I said in a couple of the first episodes, a place for me to have a creative outlet and for others to join along if they wanted to. And as I was creating that, the idea of archetypes came to me. And it's not like that's a foreign idea. I actually have participated in a type of assessment around sexuality and archetypes and sexuality. But I realized that I was sharing my experience with my friends in ways that had certain characteristics, almost like a personality behind it. And so I started diving into this idea of developing the archetypes and came up with some. And I think they're really fun. They're something I am so excited to share with as many people as I can, just because I think they're so fun, but I also think they're so freeing and identifying a way for people or for you to feel seen, and a way for you to see yourself and show up differently for yourself in your pleasure and in your relationships and in your play. So the two words I want to talk about today, they sound like they would have similar definitions, but in the context that we're going to use them at Whisper Lounge, they actually mean very different things. The two words are erotic and arousal. Now, maybe you've never thought about those words separately. For most of us, sex is this big, messy thing that includes both who we are in bed, what turns us on, what shuts us down, and it all kind of gets tangled together. But when we tease them apart, when we start to understand erotic as one language and arousal as another, something really important happens. We stop thinking we're broken or too complicated or maybe not enough. We start to see the patterns that actually make sense of why sex feels alive sometimes and flat other times. So that's where we're going today. So what do we mean by erotic? When I use the word erotic, I'm talking about your expression. Think of it as the role that you tend to play, the energy that you carry into intimacy, the style that feels the most natural to you. Think of it maybe like a personality. Just like some people are extroverts and some are introverts, some people's erotic selves are generous and service-oriented, while others are bold and commanding. Some thrive in novelty and adventure, while others may bloom in emotional closeness. In the framework I use here in Whisper Lounge, I call these your erotic archetypes. There are 5 main ones: giver, driver, explorer, harmonizer, taker. And then there's the shapeshifter, which is a more fluid and adaptable version, someone who embodies all of the archetypes. Your erotic archetype does not lock you in a box. It's not a label. It's meant to be more of a lens, a way of noticing how you tend to show up in sex. It tells you, this is how I usually express desire. This is how I most often meet a partner in bed. This is where I get my energy. And that awareness alone can be freeing, because a lot of us have been told there's one right way to be sexual, and usually it looks like a narrow, heteronormative script. But when you realize, oh, I'm not supposed to look like everyone else, I have my own erotic fingerprint, it opens things up. What it also does is gives you ways that maybe other people or other erotic archetypes might show up. And that may be something you want to explore. Maybe you want to explore showing up, even though you're naturally a giver. You want to explore showing up as a driver. So you could actually grow your ability to show up in different ways. So that's why I think this is just really cool, really exciting, and a lot of fun to play around with. So the second word we said was arousal. What do we mean by arousal? So let's contrast that with erotic. Arousal is not your expression. It's your ignition. It's what lights you up in the first place. Some of us are turned on by subtle energy, eye contact, anticipation, maybe breath. That's what I call the resonant. Others need sensory immersion, the feel of fabric, temperature, smell, sound. That is the sensate archetype. Some come alive through movement and physical intensity. That's the kinetic. Some people need their minds engaged, fantasy, language, taboo. That's the psychant. For others, it's actually emotional connection, trust, care, intimacy. That archetype's called the emotive. And some are turned on by seeing something, or watching, or by being seen. That archetype goes back and forth between the observer and the performer. So those are the arousal archetypes. And here's the thing, arousal is situational. It's not about how you show up, it's about what conditions need to be there for you to feel turned on. So erotic, that's kind of to sum up, is the style of play. Arousal is the spark that gets you going in the game. And this is where the distinction really matters, because the two don't always line up neatly. For instance, maybe your erotic archetype is driver. You like to take control, lead the energy, be bold. But your arousal archetype is resonant, meaning your body needs to slow build up, needs subtle tension and emotional safety before you can even get turned on. So your erotic style says fast, bold, heat now. While your arousal system might be saying, well, let's linger, let's build, let's feel safe. If you don't know that about yourself, you might end up frustrated, thinking, why do I lose momentum just when I finally am getting what I want? But when you do know, you can create space for both, honoring the conditions that ignite your body while still leaning into the style of erotic expression that feels the most like home. For me, this clicked when I realized I was often showing up in bed with a lot of curiosity, but also tended to show up in bed kind of the same way. And I wanted to ask myself the questions of why am I showing up this way most of the time? The way that I tend to show up, as we get into the archetypes, will make a little bit more sense, but I tend to show up as a taker. And I like to be kind of controlled. If you're familiar with BDSM terminology, it might be more of the submissive and the dominant. I wanted to explore that, but I also really liked the idea of things that were forbidden. And anyways, it was a period of time where I was really experimenting with different lovers and just seeing myself kind of show up in similar ways, which made me really curious. Because I could have like willingness, but maybe physically my arousal switch wouldn't flip. And I would wonder if that was a sign that something was wrong with me. Learning to separate erotic from arousal really helped me identify kind of a different truth, I guess. My erotic self was more fixed, but my arousal pattern was a little bit more fluid. My mind often is the thing that catches up to my body. The other thing I noticed was that I wanted to expand. Like, I wanted to be turned on by more things, by different things. Didn't want it to always have to be some very specific way or experience. And so how do I start exploring that? How do I start training my body? I mean, wouldn't that be fantastic if you could be aroused and excited and by all different kinds of possibilities? That just opens up the world in my mind. So it just helped me realize that I was not broken. I was multilingual. My erotic side is speaking one language while my arousal side is speaking another. And both of them not only deserve to be heard, but oftentimes can be brought in to work together and make the experience that much more satisfying. So I did some preliminary research on just this idea of archetypes and the splitting of the archetypes into an erotic and arousal. And it actually coincides pretty well with the research that's already out there, the sexology type studies that have been done and the different opinions that exist in academic circles and in research. But no one's really come up with a way to see those two different sides of yourself. So again, I think that this is just really fun, and it really invites curiosity, which to me is a fundamental part of growth, becoming a better person, enjoying life, living things to their fullest. And yeah, curiosity to me is essential to all of that. So here's my invitation to you. Start noticing your own patterns. When you think about your erotic self, what roles do you tend to slip into? Do you light up when you're guiding someone else's pleasure, or do you come alive when you're in charge? Do you maybe crave novelty or emotional closeness or the freedom to receive? And then separately ask, what flips my ignition switch? Do I need slow build up? Do I need movement? Do I need words or story to be seen? You might be surprised what you notice. Sometimes the erotic and the arousal line up perfectly, and sometimes they kind of clash. Sometimes they change depending on the partner or the day, and all of that is valid because the goal here isn't to nail down a single identity. The goal is to listen, to understand the languages your body is already speaking, and your brain. What's the number one sexual organ in your body? Your brain. So you want to understand all of those languages so you can stop fighting yourself and start playing. That's where we're going to start this series. I'm going to do several episodes about the archetypes, and we started with erotic versus arousal, expression versus ignition, two different, equally important ways of understanding your sexuality and your expression. In the next episode, I'll introduce you to the erotic archetypes in more detail: the giver, the driver, the explorer, the harmonizer, the taker, and of course, the shapeshifter. You'll probably recognize pieces of yourself in more than one. Actually, you will most likely recognize pieces of yourself in more than one. And if you're already curious, just after this initial introduction, you can actually take the archetype quizzes at whisperlounge.com. They'll give you your own erotic and arousal archetype profiles with descriptions, strengths, shadows, and some ways to even start integrating them. But whether you take the quizzes or not, I hope this gave you permission to notice yourself a little differently. To see that, you're not too complicated and you're definitely not broken. You're just speaking more than one language of desire. So thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for being here. Tip the lounge or grab your free journal while it lasts at whisperlounge.club.